This week on Fade to Obsidian, we are talking chapters 37 to 40 of Lightbringer. We recommend you have read to this part of the book. Please note that this episode contains discussions of death and violence as well as strong language. Viewer discretion is advised.
Welcome to Fade to Obsidian. Take a seat, grab a drink, and let's spill all the tea on the ships and relationships in the Red Rising saga.
Welcome, everybody, to Fade to Obsidian, your Red Rising podcast about relationships and spaceships. This week, we get to look at both. We often forget about the spaceship portion. I am Skipper, joined, as always, by Crescent. And this week, we get double the fun.
New friends.
Power couple. Bottles and Puppeteer. Welcome, Bottles and Puppeteer.
Welcome, you guys.
Thank you.
Thanks for joining us
guys.
this week. So, who are you? Why are you Bottles and Puppeteer? And what are you drinking this week?
Right. Well, I'll take the lead on this one. My name is Bottles. I am a Texan native that is a big lover of the Red Rising series as a result of my wife, Puppeteer. And why am I Bottles? Well, I showed up to the HowlerCon earlier this year, and I showed up carrying one thing that pretty much characterized my entire experience while I was there. A backpack full of mini alcohol bottles, which I started handing out to everyone and anyone that was just super chill, including Skipper and Crescent here. Skipper's still giving me a hard time about giving her tequila.
Gross. Terrible.
She complains about tequila so much.
So much.
And I will fix that. But while I'm at it, we gave it to everyone and anyone, including Howler number 1, PB.
Mm-hmm.
And as a result of my first impression to most of the people that I got to meet at HowlerCon and eventually get accepted into the den, my name was established as Bottles. And Puppeteer, you want to go ahead and tell us why you're a Puppeteer?
So, Puppeteer, I was the brains behind the bottles. This was very premeditated. Goes back to listening to another Red Rising podcast where it was HowlerPod and Aaron Ayers said, anyone who gives me alcohol will be my best friend. And I'm like, noted.
Done.
And so I was like, John, we have to buy mini alcohol bottles to share with everyone.
Yeah.
So that's exactly what we did. I do have to give Bottles credit for wanting to get even more bottles. So true to the name,
Yeah.
Always wanting more bottles. And yeah, I was there telling him who to go make friends with, like Skipper and Crescent. I was like, go make friends with those people right there. And that's what he did. So
Yeah.
Thank you, Bottles.
Yeah, thank you.
Oh, absolute pleasure. And you asked one more question. I just want to make sure I answer it. You wanted to know what we're drinking.
Yes.
I'm going to let Puppeteer tell you first, and I'll go after her.
Well, I am drinking my favorite drink of all time. It is the original Dr. Pepper with pure sugar, made in Texas, of course. And I'm drinking it in an ice glass with a straw that matches.
Cute. I love it.
Very nice.
I love Dr. Pepper. So good. So
The
good.
best.
Yeah.
Rare exception. A lot of people don't like it, and I love it.
They're wrong.
So
Yeah, they're definitely wrong.
now I've got 3 beverages this evening, representing the people that will be exploring this chapter. First is a beautiful pink for an Empress lemonade mixture. Thank you very much to Skipper for giving me that suggestion. The pink is to represent Mateo, our beautiful guy that I fell in love with as soon as I started reading him in the first book. Represents this guy that we'll be meeting once again in chapters 38 through 40. And for the other bad boy that we want to meet, Quicksilver. I took my finest scotch that I found, an Oban Lil Bay style. I'll be drinking that one They represent Quicksilver. And finally, for our gracious hosts, a non-alcoholic but wonderful drink that I found while I was shopping at our local Tom Thumb. Clearly Canadian. Strawberry summer.
Crescent, have you ever had Clearly Canadian? I have not.
Oh yes. You took me all the way back there.
I've never had it.
Super sweet.
It's a very West Coast thing. It's not really here in Ontario.
They do not shy away from the sugar.
No. Pierce loves Clearly Canadian. There's a fact.
He does.
Pierce
exactly.
Loves Clearly Canadian.
I did not know that.
Yeah.
Well, if Pierce likes it, I'll like it too.
There you go.
So those
Well, I mean, if you like Dr. Pepper with full sugar, yeah, I mean...
Yeah. Love it. Well, I'll jump after you, because mine looks very similar. I had the similar idea, but it is a Pink Whitney, which is like lemonade vodka. It's pink from Mateo, because I love them. And Crescent, what do you have?
I went with Bottles. Other choice. I'm drinking Lefroy Cargis Warehouse 1, because, we went looking for a warehouse of ships.
Oh.
And weapons.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, we don't find them.
No. Oh.
But we'll start the episode off right.
Yeah.
All right.
There's a bottle
Get a
lick.
little bottle lick in.
There's a bottle lick. Goddamn right.
All right. Wow. Yeah. Cheers. All right, well, we'll jump in. We pick up with our three boys and Ori on the Archimedes. We get to see Cassius being like super domestic. It's one of my favorite things of him like wiping the boot mark off the
literally chasing Darrow with like a spray bottle and a rag.
Being like, you guys are disgusting. Get off my ship.
Life of privilege is no excuse for slovenliness.
Yeah.
True. And also we learned that Severo doesn't flush.
Yeah. I like that, like, yeah, Darrow's just like, oh, we had janitors. Like, the poor janitors. Like,
yeah, can you imagine?
2 years of your life without janitors.
Ugh.
Yeah.
Yikes.
Your mother would whip you silly.
Oh, she absolutely would.
Yeah.
I've actually... I won't get into
Deanna's
that.
not having it. Yeah.
I can't imagine.
It's so gross. Poor Cassius has let them on his ship and has to deal with. And I like that when Severo
quite literally has to deal with.
I mean, it's technically Quicksilver's ship that he gave to them.
Well, did Quick give it to him? I always was under the assumption that Quick built it, but it was Cassius's. Do we know?
Yeah,
I don't know. That's actually a question.
I'm not certain where the actual origin of the Archimedes is.
Like, I always
know
thought
that it was
they start Iron Gold on it.
Yeah.
They end Morningstar leaving off of it.
Yeah. So I always thought it was just Bologna's ship. Because for a while, Quick would have just been making ships for, like, everybody kind of a thing. Like, you got to be able to probably buy whatever. And it's like, right? You got to think. So we know, let's talk spaceships. We never do. And also, if you're watching on YouTube, the Archimedes is behind me there.
Hey!
Nice. That is one of the... We got that at
Wonderful
HallerCon.
things that came out of HallerCon, yeah.
But we know that it's like cloaking device is so expensive that it would like bankrupt the Republic. Like that's said in a previous chapter. So my guess is that Quick wouldn't just give it to Cassius. I think that is Bologna money that Cassius has managed to acquire one.
So I guess you could say that he probably bought it, but one of the things that you want to mention, and I love this quote that comes out of the first chapter in Cacophony, Quicksilver doesn't create questions to which he doesn't have answers.
Yes.
Yep.
I'm like, oh. So Cassius may own the ship, but Quicksilver owns it.
Yeah.
Well, I think, Quicksilver has the ability to track it, has the ability, like, you're not gonna put one over on him, no matter what he's...
Well, and then they come in, and Quicksilver, or Mateo's like, no, don't bother with the controls.
Yeah.
So,
Exactly.
Cassius lowercase o owns it.
Yeah.
Yeah, there you
Quicksilver
go.
capital O owns it.
Yeah, exactly.
Absolutely correct.
Yeah.
Oh, before we launch into the chapter, I do want to mention we don't want to skip this part 1, or part 3, Tempest, which has that fantastic quote by Zeus, pretty much telling them that bad things happen to bad people, and they deserve everything that comes to them. Trying to say that the mortals blame the gods, but it only cause their own suffering. That's actually a really good theme for everything that happens after this.
Yeah. Yeah, he did a great job of throwing back to in this one. I mean, it's mostly Odyssey and Iliad is the other parts that he's used, but yeah, Pierce really throws back to the Romans and the Greeks through all of this, and the old mythology, if you will, which,
Sure.
continues today to influence all of our literature that we're reading. So yeah, good call out on that one.
Sure. So, apologies. Continuing
No,
in chapter
it's all
37,
good.
Cacophony.
Yeah, so we get Severo is in a state because he's been told he still can't go back to Mars, and so he is working it through by making knives. Shout out to
Just a
Stabby
super
Legion.
healthy coping mechanism.
Super
No,
healthy.
that he names after those who traumatized him, actually.
Yeah.
Which is red flag.
Yeah. And listening to
that is,
cacophony music, which is like, what is it when it blew and a
Green and an obsidian.
Green and obsidian. Yeah. Yeah.
Imagine like death, upset.
Like deathcore.
Deathcore, yeah.
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 Can't imagine it's a pleasant sound.
I don't know if any of you have ever heard the Browning.
No.
But I imagine that's very
What?
very similar. It's literally death metal EDM.
Oh.
I grew up as a
Actually pretty good.
metalhead, so I'm curious.
Yeah.
Browning.
Get after it.
I'll have to check him out.
Surprisingly good snowboarding music.
There you go.
See, now I'm definitely gonna check it out.
Yeah, so he's ignoring Darrow. Very upset that Darrow keeps showing up in his space. Half kind of threatening him with the knives. Like, there's a couple sketchy moments there of, like, using the knife to turn the music off. So Severo's kind of going through it. Cassius, we know, is drinking a lot. Ari's just putting up with them. And Darrow, we don't find this out till later, but we know now that Darrow trains, like, 6 hours, like, he's basically trying to make himself Apollonius. Like, that we find out way later.
Himself to Apollonius.
Like,
They mention it later in the chapter, where he sets a syllabus for himself, for his mind, his spirit, and his body, with the understandings, and of course, training with Cassius for 6 hours a day.
6 hours a day. That Cassius
6
keeps
hours a day
kicking
for
his
36
ass.
days.
Yeah.
So we now have another timestamp.
Timestamp. Badger is very obsessed with
36
the
days from Mars to the asteroid.
Yeah.
We also learn possibly the thing that makes me most jealous. Darrow eats 10,000 calories a day.
Right? I saw that. I was like,
I wish.
Holy.
Isn't like...
Yeah, for real.
What's the, like... Right now, we normally eat, like, what, 2,000?
The like, food guide recommends an average of, like, 2,000 a day. Yeah.
And then, wasn't it during World War II that American soldiers, it was mandatory to eat, like, 3,000? Like, American soldiers had a limit of, like, it's supposed to be up so that they could keep up there. And then we've got Darrow doing 10,000.
Like Thanksgiving level.
Yep.
Well, they're not exactly training hard the entire time for 6 hours. They're running some, sure, on the average soldier. And also keep in mind that golds have a very different metabolisms.
Mhm.
So
They're bigger.
range
Yeah, they're way bigger
Yeah.
than us. Yeah.
Yeah.
just a bit.
What is Michael
Yeah.
Phelps? Doesn't
Um,
Michael Phelps eat a ridiculous? I'm pretty sure
Probably.
Michael.
I would bet that when he's like in full training mode,
Yeah.
he's like probably 5,000 calories a day.
See, now that just makes me wonder what the mountain eats every day.
8 to 10. Michael Phelps is 8 to 10 when he is in
Damn.
full training. So
Wow.
There you go.
Yeah.
Darrow is trying to
Yeah,
be Michael Phelps right now.
Yeah.
Daryl's actually
the
not
comp-
eating enough.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Michael
a
Phelps
heavyweight
is doing
bodybuilder
that.
will eat about that much too
Yeah,
when they're trying to put on muscle.
there you go. So it's,
Crazy.
So-
it's fine. It's fine. It's nothing.
Puppeteer, you want to say anything about the relationship between Darrow and Severo right now?
One thing I did want to say was it's interesting the name of the chapter is Cacophony,
Mhm.
and it's like on the nose how perfectly it represents everything going on internally with everyone, between everyone on the ship,
Yeah.
and the music, of course.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, like Darrow says it right at the end of the chapter as Severo turns the music back on. He's like, and the music comes basically comes between us.
Yeah, it rattles between them. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah, I
really
thought that
interesting to
was
see
perfect.
the wall that's been built between them. Almost brothers since, honestly, since even the very first book a little bit. So to see that separation, especially what's been going on since in the new series, since even Iron Gold, Severo's been kind of separating and creating a wall between him and Darrow, and as a result, we see that wall in a literal sound of music, cacophony. That literally, and when he says cacophony rattles between them, there's something thick between them that they really need to work on.
Yeah.
Well, and the other thing that I think that represents is like they used to be of one mind, and now it's exactly the opposite. So it's just feedback.
Mm-hmm.
It's very representative of what happens to relationships as they go through traumas together. You get shaken up, and it takes some butting heads and working through cacophony to really get somewhere.
Well, you love her being on here.
Absolutely, we do.
Yeah. Yeah, it's super interesting. This is
Right.
not the Darrow Severo we have known from any other book. Like even Iron Gold, they had their problems, but they were still always on the same page having their problems. Right now it is a like barely he says it that they're not good. Right?
It's a
They might not ever be.
No, yeah, he says that's absolutely correct.
It's a like a relationship post betrayal,
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
they got some really intense betrayal towards each other, and they were both on the wrong end of that one.
Yeah.
Yeah, they both cheated on each other.
Yeah.
Yep. And now it's a really tough relationship to repair if both of them aren't willing to repair it.
For sure. Well, and Severo's also like, okay, we'll talk about as if they're cheated on each other. The other person who's hanging out on the ship pretending to be Severo's best friend, which you never like when your best friend has a different best friend, is the person who killed your father. Like there's so many different layers of like, yeah, okay, I'm supposed to be good with Cassius, but also like, how many times did he betray us? Like, he's the one who's raised Lysander. Like, there's so many things in Severo's mind of why to not trust Cassius, yet you're living on his ship. So I bet you Severo is probably, if they're on the, let's say, Pandora or the Morning Star, he is probably dirty, but I bet you he has amped it up to, like, the 10th degree of, like, you know what? Fuck you. Like, you have to clean it up because, like, yeah.
Yep. The moment he found out Cassius was bothered by not flushing, that was when his
That
mission
was
started.
it. Yeah.
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 Yeah, he forgot one day, and then it started a whole thing.
Yeah. For sure.
It's really interesting to imagine what Severo's feeling at this moment, because he feels pretty betrayed. He feels kind of like, not just by Arrow himself, but by his own wife, who literally said, "Go away, go on this mission," and gave him no information about what happened in the last book, which in the following chapters we'll discuss.
Yeah. Well, that's it. Is you still have the heartbreaking moment of Darrow says to. I don't think he says it, but he thinks it. He's thinking of his daughter and his newborn child. And us as
That's
the
in
reader
a
is
couple
sitting
chapters.
there. Yeah, us and the reader is sitting there
It's
being
like,
like, oh,
no!
God.
Yeah, the definition of dramatic irony.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll get to that. Which, while we're on it, why don't we move on to the next chapter, which is, I think, the theme of this entire 4-chapter thing, Tabula Rasa.
Yeah, I want to just pause for a second while we're talking spaceships. What are our thoughts on the Darrow calls it out, Lysander is sleeping in his bed while Darrow sleeps in Lysander's?
Glad you commented on that.
Yeah.
It's interesting. Hannah, what do you think?
I just think it's a nice representation of a turn of events, and Pierce is using the ships very thoughtfully in his story writing.
Yeah.
Yeah, is really giving use to that foil relationship.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a very
interesting.
I think it's showing the difference in their personalities. Darrow's been really humbled, so he's now in a much smaller ship, where Lysander's getting pretty big for his britches, and now he's on the Lightbringer.
Ooh, that's a good call out.
Yeah,
I like that. That's a great. Yeah, it definitely is where they've both switched places to be, and where their head space is as well.
Mm-hmm.
absolutely. I think it's actually a very good commentary on actually, I'm gonna appeal to something that's from another book, Ender's Game, where in order to know your enemy, you must love them. Literally be in the place where Lysander was and what brought him up, and is almost doing the exact same thing that Lysander was. Training every day, exploring the galaxy, moving through space. He's learning a lot about Lysander, at least the perspective that he gathered from Cassius, that allows him to have a very unique perspective and possibly give him a little bit more of an advantage in his plan that ends this chapter.
Yeah. Yep, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, and then we have Mateo shows up. We get to see our Pink. And as we say, takes over kind of the reins, and they have just that quick, but I really like just how happy Darrow is to see Mateo, how happy Mateo is to see Darrow. Like, those are the two. Yeah.
Except for the beard.
Everybody hates the beard. Mustang called out the beard. Mateo hates the beard, but yet Darrow is like, no, it makes me feel like I've been on a journey. Like, I'm keeping it. And you're like, all right,
he's one of those guys that's in denial about his beard.
Yeah. Yeah.
Was that
so funny?
Yeah, what was that, Puppeteer? Your mic didn't pick it up.
I said he's hiding behind his beard.
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah, very much so.
He's hiding his gaunt cheekbones.
Yeah.
Yep.
Well,
he's hiding his trauma behind some hair.
Yeah. The fact that he can grow like a full beard and he's only just getting his hair back from the radiation is,
So, that's kind of interesting. I don't know if any of you follow Hank Green on Instagram.
I do, yes.
He's just gone through chemotherapy, and his hair's starting to grow back. But he's like, I can grow a better beard now than before I went through chemo.
Interesting.
So
I had no idea. Because I also realized that his hairline's not as solid as it was before, but obviously after chemo, can you imagine?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
maybe
Interesting.
No.
something like that.
Maybe it was something he never was able to have before, and then the radiation got him.
Yeah,
like,
and
"All right,
he's like,
now
"Hey,
I can grow
I
beard."
finally got a beard." Yeah, that's it. He's that person who's super excited he can finally grow one, and meanwhile his wife's like, "One day on, like, you have 1 hour with me, and it's gone." Right? Like, no, we're not keeping this. Yeah.
Hashtag disclaimer: please do not expose yourself to radiation in order to grow a beard.
Yeah.
True. It's a bad idea.
I mean, come on, someone do it for the science. Let us know. Let us know.
That is not the official position of the Fade to Obsidian podcast. Skipper's opinions are her own. They're not endorsed here.
Ain't touching that.
Covering our asses legally.
Fine. That also brings up when Matteo addresses Cassius, he calls him Bologna, and Cassius says it's just Bologna. So love that, because we've seen that the Telemanuses have been doing that a whole bunch. I have a question for Crescent. Why are you still going by Ag Tranquillus? Are you on the side of this society?
Because Pierce called it to me.
Just saying. I'm saying. Technically, you should just be Tranquillus.
I feel like
Also,
we kind of have to message.
At the beginning of the next chapter, it says Regulus Ag Soon.
Yes.
I don't know if you want to maul yourself after Quicksilver.
I don't know,
especially
man.
what we learn
That's
after the next 2 chapters. By all means, hey man, you do you.
Yeah.
Which is actually very interesting. The fact that Bologna is actually starting to change as a character and become a little more softened, a little bit more withdrawn from society, and starting to understand the point of the Rising and the Republic.
Yeah, I like that he actually makes the correction.
Yes.
Instead of just like, internally being like,
yeah,
nuts. He called me Al Bologna.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. Which I'm
Matteo
pretty happy
actually notes it too.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, he absolutely does. He literally says, "Interesting."
Yeah. I think this was my turning point. Probably this chapter of when I thought that maybe there was more to Cassius and he wasn't just a dolphin to leave on vacation. Maybe he is somebody you can take home. This is probably that turning point where I was like, oh, like, he clearly cleans. You want him around a little bit. He's got to cook because someone has to have been all these years. And then he's, he's softening.
We think he has a cute little apron.
Oh my god, he definitely has an apron and mitts. He's got like
merch folk.
Yes,
apron.
Okay, Redbubble does it do aprons? I think it does aprons. I'm 90% sure we can get aprons.
You do 37 different things for each item.
Everybody submit what you want your Cassius apron to say, and I will get it up and running. But yeah.
Hell yeah.
Good old Cassius.
Now I'm gonna have to brainstorm that.
Yeah, but that's pretty much it as we go in, and then we get to dock, and only Darrow gets off the ship, which is one of my favorite things of Matteo being so sweet and naming all the people who have passed. Theodora, Orion, Dancer, Alexander. That is, I think, the saddest one is the Alexander. Yeah.
Yep.
I love what he says, where he's literally in his accent he showed that he's willing to break the chains.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, Darrow feels so seen in that moment. And I feel so proud of Matteo to acknowledge him.
Yeah.
That.
For sure. And then the last person.
And then he also is mourning for Severo.
And then Severo gets off the ship.
And Several
Intrigue.
literally says he doesn't even understand. He says, "No point in mourning what isn't dead yet."
Yeah.
Oh, buddy. Oh, buddy.
Yeah.
That's the thing, though, is like they might not actually know that
Don't.
Severo's not dead.
No, that's the whole thing, is because Darrow says they clearly don't know everything. And they don't
about the
know, later
auction,
we
yeah.
learn we don't know about the auction, don't know what Severo's been through. There's that whole space. But even right then, when he says I mourn for Severo, Darrow says, oh, so they don't know everything, because they had written him off as dead, and it is,
Yeah.
Severo come alive again to walk off the ship and be like,
Yeah.
stop! Like, I just had shit to
But
do.
yeah,
I had to clean up, is what he
definitely.
said.
Yeah, definitely has a double meaning for the reader, though.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. But, yeah.
And, it falls into an interesting area in the fact that he's trying to do the very thing that we're starting to evolve into in this chapter, which the chapter actually titled Tabula Rasa. It means blank slate, and I explain that later on in chapter. Yeah. But tabula rasa is actually a philosophical and even religious term, meaning blank. When it comes to blank slate, it started with as far as Aristotle, which obviously you're gonna appeal to PBU in that element.
Yeah.
But it goes on to Descartes and to John Locke, which is the most one it's associated with, and then even to Freud. The concept that goes against the concept of innatism, that we are born with certain elements, but rather everything that it influences in our and causes us to change as a person is something we learn. Like a wax tablet, we're imprinted on. We're influenced by our environment and by our leaders. As a result, that's how we're molded.
Mm-hmm.
So leading up to all those things, she's Mateo acts as a kind of nurture element. Everything that made Darrow as a gold was Mateo's influence on him.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
So when he influenced him, he built him and made him into a gold, and even Darrow comments on this.
Yeah.
So it's really interesting to see that.
Yeah, and he especially calls it out when he talks about mourning Dancer, of those memories of Dancer watching Mateo teach the gold mannerisms and all of that. And Mateo, very much. He talks later about him being Quicksilver's basically first made son, but Quicksilver was always a step away. He was the money behind it, but he never got to interact with Darrow until Morningstar, I think, rather than Mateo is the one who is there right away.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
I think you were going to say something, Chris.
Oh, Skipper basically covered it.
We're on the same page at all times.
It's true.
And then from there, we move into Enter Regulus.
Yes.
Quicksilver.
In a very interesting manner, we get him, because they're watching the Hollow from the Day of Red Doves. And he is, hovering above it. And it's just very, why is that the day that they've decided to go back and look at? Why is that?
It's the perfect day. It's the perfect day for Quicksilver to explain that, because the whole point of him reading what we're going to learn later on in this chapter is because he thinks that society has been corrupted, has been, in his specific terms, has been contaminated. Mm-hmm. By the society, by everything that influences them, and their opinions and their decisions, and everything that brought them to the point of the Day of Red Doves. The mob thinking all these influences that eventually caused them to riot and attack their own people. to choose that day is to explain exactly why society fails.
Right.
Why society fought against the ideals that they had been fighting for 10 years at that point.
Yeah.
They turned against the people who were trying to better their lives to the point that they destroyed their own society, as Quicksilver sees it.
Mm-hmm.
And it's the perfect day because of that element. He's like, look what your own people, because not only of their ideals, but their traumas, led them to cause this overturn of the society of the Republic of the Sovereign. And it just kind of, he's just saying, like, no matter what you do, it's gonna be destroyed by your own people because they are ignorant due to their trauma and their experiences.
Yeah.
It directly relates to the quote at the beginning of the part also, the Tempest quote, where people are just going to blame their gods, but really they're just going to eat themselves from the inside.
Yeah. Yeah, it's perfect. Love that.
EB went
Also,
full philosophical
Grab
here.
slippers.
Pardon? What did you say,
Grab
Kristen?
slippers?
Grab slippers. Yeah.
Grab slippers.
I want grab slippers. I don't think I, like, at first, even listening to it today, which was, like, read through number 3, and it was really interesting when it said, like, he's floating above them, I was just like, oh, like, as in they can see him through the hollow, and it was at the end, I was like, oh, no, he's literally hovering above it. Like, I was like, yeah, his slippers are glowing. And I was like, oh, okay. Like, super interesting.
Kind of.
I did not catch that.
Right? Like,
I
it's
didn't
a
catch that
bizarre.
either.
I was like, I just assumed, like, whenever they're talking about hollows, of like,
Well
I don't know,
done,
you
Preston.
think about it as you look through. So it's like, yeah, he's hovering above because he's standing in a position that just makes it look. But he's literally, this is the first time I read through that. It's like, no, he is literally hovering above it, which feels like a very. Go for it.
Talks about his slippers dimming as he comes down. Like, oh.
Yeah. It's a very, like,
Catch that.
It's like an ominous position for him, too. Like, he thinks himself as a god.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
We'll
100%.
get into that in a second. Yeah.
Well, and it's interesting because the last time we saw him hosting a meeting, he was barefoot. When we meet him in Morningstar, we learn that he hosts his meetings and everything barefoot. So now he's got these, like, glowing slippers that let him float through everything. So, like, is that a change in his outlook on it, or is that he just needs to lend his footwear or lack of footwear to the situation? Is he more just
maybe
comfortable
now
at
he's
home? Like,
maybe now he's, instead of being grounded, he's floating above the masses.
Look at you go.
I think we're interesting element. I think that it may not even be about that. I think it ties back to this contaminating element, a concept of separation. He doesn't believe that he should be connected with whatever is attached to the tabula rasa, because he believes he too is contaminated to it. So if he were to touch it personally, he would contaminate the concept, which we'll get into in a moment.
Yeah. Well, he does then come back down. Like, he does stop floating. But yeah, I like that.
The fact that he's wearing shoes, he's not barefoot.
Yeah, he's not barefoot. Oh, okay, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
He doesn't want to touch the hallowed ground.
Yeah.
Sleep with shoes on. Guess we'd have to ask Mateo.
I don't know.
Yeah.
We'd have to ask BB.
Interesting. Yeah.
Anyway,
But
the
then,
chapter moves on. Yeah, go ahead.
I was gonna say, so then we find out that there is no weapons, and there is heartbreak. And I think also, let's even before we get into the no weapons, can we talk about Severo's behavior during this? And Puppeteer, you might be the person who can shed more information of how on edge Severo is.
Definitely, he's on another level. He's in a different place than majority of the characters right now. And you can really feel his own separation. And he reminds me a little bit of like a defiant teenager, but with actual reasons to be angry.
Yeah.
Just trying to get some kind of reaction from Dad.
Yeah. I love that. Because I love the call out that Quick is like always seen him as like the black sheep son. And Sever not understanding that how much he gets away, that no one else can talk to Quicksilver in the way he does. That he really is Quick's, child. So I love that, the defiant teenager. But the whole time, he's sitting there not trusting. And Quick has to how many times be like, violence will not be allowed here. Do not resort to violence. There is no violence. Because Severo's like, at what point do I need knives? Like, how many knives is Severo carrying right now? He's like perched. He won't sit with them. He's perched up on the couch. Like, he's just watching his back at all times.
They're like his version of a safety blanket or security blanket.
Yeah, exactly.
Security knives.
Security knives. Yep. Love it.
I don't know if that would pass at the behavioral hospital, but I mean, if it works for Severo.
Yeah.
That's what he says. Everybody's got their own way. Everybody deals with trauma in their own way, especially without therapy.
Yep. Exactly. But then we move from there. We can get into Quick. We get Quick's backstory first. And the reason he wears the ring, which is a very upsetting story of him being in a partnership, married or however, previous to Mateo, and, getting himself in shit, his kids being brutally murdered, and then him agreeing to be the one who lives over his husband. Like, there is a lot of trauma there.
Mm-hmm. Well, and literally being forced to cut off his pound of flesh.
Yeah.
It makes you wonder how he even got to a place where he could do what he's doing.
Yeah, I would love the middle section of clearly he's got that like not redemption, but vengeance almost of a like, I will be better than this, like I will work my way up. But yeah, how do you get through that?
That's quite the trauma to move forward from.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. Sure. The chapter is titled Under the Golden Gaze, which is actually a really interesting concept. I mean, he's got an eye ring and a golden gaze. That's the perfect element and the perfect metaphor for the entire point of his story. After he... by the way, I named this chapter Saw 172 because this is 1,000 years in the future, so Saw definitely has to continue as a movie franchise at that point. And when you were going into it, like, he talks about how he had a husband and married, and they married and they had 4 kids, and they go into all this elements that they eventually build a family, but they lose their fortune and they gain the favor of a creditor and all that stuff, to the point that they have to pay back in flesh. There he has to cut off portions of his butt and his thighs. That's 176, Saw 176 right there. And a portion of that is the fact that this is the nightmare fuel right here. He had carnivorous horses.
Yeah.
Can you imagine a horse that eats meat, like, with sharpened teeth? Run!
Well, I mean, and Pierce did say that the carvers can create whatever human imagination can come up with, and this is clearly one of those things.
Have you ever been next to a horse and you can imagine it as carnivorous, as in, like, I will take a munch out of you the second you don't pay attention? scare the fuck out of me.
My thing
horses
is
are scary.
Well, and it's probably like, I don't know why in my head it's like Clydesdale size. Like it's the full height.
Because they might be sunbloods.
Ooh, good call.
That's
So much worse. Come on, man.
I'm just saying.
And you had.
I'm just.
Okay.
I
Yeah, 'cause,
mean,
like-
I
Because like
let's.
when Lysander first meets Blood of Empire,
Mhm.
he puts his face to him and he's like, I hope he doesn't bite my face off. Like,
Yeah.
He literally thinks that.
Yeah.
like-
So we think that perhaps the
You're
Sunblood.
probably some bloods then.
Yeah.
Okay. You can imagine that. But also, like, the whole point of the eyeball in the ring, he literally gave the gold a spoon. It's like, alright. You take out that eyeball and I will let you live. Once again, one saw 177 at this point. So we're starting to see just Saw continue its franchise with him not only having his eye spooned out, but then he's put inside a life pod, which shoots him out into space. And by the time they have this conversation, he's 82 years old.
Yeah. Why then it affects Darrow, I think, so much of like Darrow has been in that position.
He feels nauseous. He feels terrible. He
Yeah.
hates what he's hearing.
Yeah.
He understands. It's literally one of the most compromising moments for Darrow in general. In the sense that not only has he understood what Quicksilver's trying to do in terms of abandoning his cause, but also that previous story, understanding that, like, being in the table, he gets that situation. And it's like, oh my god, what have you done to this person?
Yeah.
Which it leads to him suggesting that he destroy the pod on the way out.
That when they
Because they'll be
catch up
following
to
his trajectory.
and we'll catch up within 5 years. That
Yeah.
destroy it. Cause all right, so let's talk. I'm gonna throw it back to Puppeteer because you are the expert on this one. So we've got the trauma that Severo is going through in building knives, and in comparison to how, I mean, it's not even technically comparable because Severo doesn't even know that he's lost a child at this point. But let's just, in theory, compare it to the trauma that Quicksilver is going through and how his thing to do is to send a guy into space. But the ring, so that's the thing that I held on to is, yeah, you've gotten through your trauma, you've sent this guy into space, but you continue to wear the ring. So I don't know if you have comments on either comparing or just trauma in general in that comparison.
As you were talking, it reminded me of Lyria, who chose to keep her traumatic memories because it was a part of her identity instead of being some like superpowered person.
Yep.
And so that part of her is so important. She's willing to give up an easier way of helping her friends and her cause because it's so important. So I guess with Quicksilver, we can kind of assume something similar. Yeah. It's such an important cause, and he never wants to forget it, so he wears the ring to harness that anger, and it seems like he took a pretty nice route with his anger. I mean, yes, there was a lot of other traumas that he encouraged in a way, or took part in, but he was able to eventually achieve this greater dream, and that's no easy task. It took him generations to get through. So something as small as a ring can remind you, like, of that strength that your past identity has.
Yeah, I like that.
What do you guys think?
I feel like you
nailed it.
Yeah. Nothing extra? Okay, cool.
I don't know. I just always, I mean, those things stuck out to me of just, for me, it's that you go back to everybody grieves differently. Everybody has, goes through trauma differently. it's why, you know, there's no one fix for everything. And those two comparisons of, you know, in that moment, Quicksilver taking severe punishment on the one person. And to be fair, he had access to that one person rather than Severo is still in that moment of imagining what he would do and therefore creating the knives. But we then see and maybe Severo will get there, but we will see in a moment what Quick's long term is to create a better world out of that trauma. But it's just interesting to me of trauma is, I would think, the basis of these entire chapters. And we will get into Lyria in that last one. So that's a good call out as well of, you know, what happens, what all these people are going through. And it's not just Darrow Darrow is going through his trauma by, you know, trying to perfect himself in a way. And so that's the other, you know, another way of looking at it as well of what does that grief and trauma look like? Well, I'm going to make myself an absolute machine, which would be a weapon. Severo's making weapons. But yeah, it's just, I don't know, that part really stuck out to me this reading.
It's very representative of what a lot of our characters are going through.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. All right, shall we move on to the slightly happier part, which is what Quicksilver is now creating? The new world, if you will, the Homo sapiens.
I mean, it's got a mini sun. It's got its own weather patterns, and like after you understand what Quicksilver believes about the current society of them being contaminated, the world, robots kind of make sense.
Yeah.
It's like you don't want them to be exposed to that corruption of the trauma. And he literally says how technology has evolved, but trauma is something you cannot escape. If you can teach these children the information without the trauma of the generation, maybe they can become a better society.
Yeah. This was a big thing in I have finished Lightbringer thread way back, like I'm talking like July. Was what subjects are these kids learning that, because to learn history has to be from one side or another. Your wording, every word you're choosing is going to create a bias. So how and how far back are they going to take it? So okay, we think that the gold's corrupted, so let's erase everything from the gold conquering onwards. So that's what, 300 years in the future from where we currently are. Well, we don't know approximately, roughly. But let's say, okay, well, even us in the 21st century are in a place where there is oppression and war. We're seeing that around the world. So how are you going to teach them then that, like, the fairness of that at what, like, how far back? Because history at all times has conquerors and oppressors. And what stage of world history do you take it back? Or how do you teach it in a way of there is two equal sides? Like, I always say that every war has so many facets and so many sides, and it's really hard to pick a side. I would always argue that the one war that it is very easy from our current perspective to pick a side is World War II. Because even World War I, it really was who wants the bigger guns, who whatever. World War II, having the Holocaust is the hit or miss. Like, there is a bad guy and a good guy. So, but like, so you can teach that one. Is that the throwback to, what show is it? With, It's a British BBC.
I'm sorry, I mean, sir. Yeah.
It's BBC.
Where they're the Nazis, and they're like, "Are we the bad
guys?" I know exactly. I can picture it in my head. Yep. But yeah, like, okay, so that war, fine, but to lead up to that war doesn't put England in a good position, who is supposed to be your good guy. The aftermath of that war does not put people in a good position. Like, so it's so interesting to me of what are they learning, or are we excluding all human history? Thoughts? Do they get to learn science? Do they get to learn math? Like,
I think, so another part of my background in real life is I work at a preschool, and the first thing I thought was, it almost doesn't matter what history they learn, because no matter what side you're learning, there's going to be the other side. Like, there were definitely Nazis that were helpful, or that truly didn't know, like, another way. And granted, still the bad guys, but, like, what the most important part for any child that's learning and growing up, I would argue, would be critical thinking.
Yep.
You know, let's think about both sides, and also being good to each other. And lastly, trying to understand other people's perspectives. So that's the main thing we teach in preschool, because it almost doesn't matter what they're learning. They got to learn how to count, they got to learn their letters, and they got to learn how to be a human.
Yeah, I like that.
So, as much as it's important to teach the history of things, especially when they say that, like, if you don't learn history, you're doomed to repeat it, it's also important to teach basic elements about camaraderie and societal expectations that will actually allow them to become very human beings outside of the trauma of previous generations. And I think that's what Quicksilver's trying to do. He's trying to create a society that would become better outside of the understanding that people can be evil and destructive and cruel. If you can create a society off of that, you might have a better chance.
Yeah.
A true tabula rasa, in a way.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
And here's the scariest part about this. Nero, Augustus, had the same dream. He believed that we should...
that?
They literally mention this in that, saying that humanity should expand and explore beyond this current environment and this current community and create their own communities. He actually even said that they should go beyond Pluto. Nero even mentioned it. They talk about it in a conversation that Daryl remembers with Nero. That's the scariest part about it. It's like, you weren't that far off from the biggest asshole in history, but at the same point, I get where you're coming from.
Yeah. Sure. Well, what do we think of Quick doing this? Because even Quick calls it out of Darrow thinks he's a villain. And there's been some very mixed reviews of being very angry at Quicksilver for doing this. So how are you guys feeling your first read through? Well, and even this read through, like, it doesn't, I don't think, change much outside of these chapters. So how are you feeling? Is Quick an asshole for doing this? Or are you, have other thoughts that he's not?
Kind of, maybe because we read from Darrow's perspective in this, but I kind of agree with Darrow. Like, yeah, this really sucks and there's a lot of issues with it, but I get it in the end.
Yeah.
We'll say that... Go ahead, Chris.
Yeah, my first time through, I was like, you gotta be fucking kidding me. But at this point, now I'm like, okay, yeah, I get it.
Gotta change the paradigm.
He's lost his family once already, right? Like, he doesn't want to lose it again.
Yeah.
One thing I like to point out is the fact that in the previous chapter, Daryl brings us the 10th understanding from the from his book, and I think that's a very relevant element in this chapter. Forgetting is essential to learning, as is exhaling is essential to breathing. So he's trying to forget the attachments that he had with Quicksilver to understand the concepts that Quicksilver is trying to promote and what he's trying to do. He literally even talks about how he was furious at Quicksilver to doing that until he remembered the 10th understanding. Forgetting is essential to learning. So he's trying to understand, like, look, I have my connections with Quicksilver, which I love this. They literally mentioned that Arrow was kind of like a son to Quicksilver after his children were killed. The only son he could really perceive of, except with the exception of Titus. We're gonna get into that. But pretty much he feels like he has to understand that you have to let go of certain elements to understand where Quicksilver is coming from. And this is a beautiful dream at the end of it. And he actually kind of forgives Quicksilver in that moment, remembering that 10th understanding. You have to forget in order to learn.
Yeah.
And to be able to learn the concept that what Quicksilver is trying to teach and trying to give in the tabula rasa, he has to forget a lot of what Quicksilver did for him.
Yep. Yep. Yeah, I don't know.
I cannot
It's
be
funny
the only one that
of
wants
like.
a full
Sorry, go.
breakdown of the whole path to the veil.
I know.
I feel like it would just be so good.
There is a Reddit somewhere. I haven't actually seen it. There is a Reddit of people have what we know.
Collating it.
Yeah. And put them in the order. So he totally should release just that.
Yeah, just like a little, 50-page book.
I agree. It doesn't have to be 50 pages. It's 10 understanding. Well, I think it's 12 understandings
That we know of.
It's 12 understandings. It's not that big. You don't have to do more than 24 pages.
Yeah.
We all know it would just become like our new Bible.
Yeah, exactly. Well, people have said it's very reminiscent of what AA has of their steps, a few other learnings of what addictions and self-help books. It's very reminiscent of that. So yeah, 100%. Listen, I'm very pro everybody go to therapy. I'm in therapy. Everybody should be in therapy. But sometimes therapy is not accessible for everybody. So if Pierce can just give us a book that at least, everyone can afford, then that can be our, therapy. It'll be great. It'll be great.
Yeah.
We're all
Pierce's $10 self-help book.
Exactly. Everyone has a self-help book. Listen, I work in a bookstore. It's a big, call it something, well, it's called Path to the Veil. I was going to say, call it something with a swear word, because we all know Subtle Fuck is the #1 selling self-help book for the last 5 years.
Sure, sure. We even have it amongst his bookshelves.
Yeah, Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fuck.
Yeah, there it is.
But, yeah, I agree. It'd be great to have that. I will say that I was 100% Team Quicksilver during this. Like, I was shocked when people were calling him a villain, when people were upset he did this. First, I think from having, I took English classes in university. I have a minor in English literature. So I know how story write, it's too easy if he had all the ships. It would have been too easy. So I knew he didn't. So I needed him to have something worth not having the ships. And I think this was the perfect thing, that reading through his trauma, what he's gone through, what he's attempting to do, fascinated me. Because the other part of that is I did take history, so that's where I'm like, what are these kids learning? Like, how do you make people perfect if you know any part of human history? Because you're going to have a bias. But I was very pro Quick. I'm very pro Team Quick on this one. I think he has every justification to do it, and because it would have been too easy for him to have the ships, anything else would have been a disappointment as a reader.
100%. And I 100% agree with you on that. I think that Quicksilver had a really unique experience that was withdrawn and kind of like separate from the overall conflict. He literally even says you get tired of investing in war. So when he says that he's trying to just draw away from that concept of war, trying to change society and create his own beyond the stars, create his own future of children being free and born free and being free beyond the stars, allows him to create his own dream that he had. And it was really funny because I mentioned before, Mateo is the nurture element of the parenthood with Darrow, and Quicksilver may have been the nature element. He's a practicalist. He's a pragmatist. He believes in the practical elements, which some people will believe is the nature element of his upbringing. But you think of the Tabula Rasa, it's a dream, and literally Darrow calls him out. It's like, maybe you weren't the practicalist in this relationship.
Yeah.
Maybe you were a dreamer at the end of the day. And I love that. I really do. The guy who tried to pretend that he's all about the numbers and the physical elements and the violence is the authority and all that. Maybe you do have a dream. Maybe you have the ability to create something beyond all this.
Yeah. For sure.
Anyway, it goes on. The chapter goes on to a lot of elements. It's not just the story of Quicksilver doing some bullshit and also having some bullshit on him.
Yeah, I don't know. It's so funny of like this read through. I mean, I think because I knew I was overanalyzing, the first read through was for me. It was getting through the book. The second read through was to, I think, fully digest it, especially doing audio. The third one this time around is to critique it. That there's so many things that, like, in all of this, it's like, so them wandering out, like, into that world, it's like, if they leave a footprint, like, I don't know, like, do the kids know what's this, like, they have to have, as they grow up, some inclination of there is somebody watching. Like, you just, I don't know, there's so many, and we can't get into it, we will never know. Pierce is never going to give us any of that, but it just, the whole idea of it totally fascinates me from that anthropology side.
Amen.
Yeah.
And look, beyond that story, which is horrific in its own element, they do mention that after that, understanding what Quicksilver is going to do for the Tabula Rasa and his original story, Darrow finally is offered an opportunity to ask what he wants, understanding everything that's already been done, and he finally asks for information, which is, I mean, really important to a guy who's a general.
Okay, but also my favorite part is when he says, Quick's trying to advise him of, you've already lost the war, whatever, and he's like, have I ever advised you on business? Then don't advise me on war. Like, it's my favorite.
Yes!
Like, yes.
Oh my god, I love that. It's like, okay, what are you trying to do?
Yeah, so good.
So when he tries to, when he's like finally at a point where he can ask Silver for something, he pretty much says like, look, if you can't offer me ships, you can't offer me soldiers, maybe you can give me some info. and they have the best telescope that's available on everywhere. And he gets a good concept of what's going on in society with the Republic and everything in the general war. And when he finally sees that the society is trying to send most of their, or at least half of their ships over to Ilium, to the moons of Jupiter, 112 ships, he sees an opportunity.
Yes.
Yep.
And that's the thing that I love about the way that Darrow approaches this, and when he talks to Severo and Cassius after talking to Quicksilver, getting all that info, and he says, like, look, I'm going to give you some information about the war. I don't want this to influence anything else. And he literally turns to his brother Severo and says, look, I know you want to go home to your family. I know the whole point of all this was for you to get home. Skipper, you feel like you want to say something. It looks like you want to say something.
No, just that, like, I mean, on that point, I think my favorite is he doesn't word it double-handed. It's, Severo, you've done your duty. I will present the information, but you have done your duty. And that's one of my favorite things about Darrow at this point, is he knows. And it harps back to Iron Gold with Victra saying, don't send him, don't ask him to do this, and Darrow saying he's going to do it anyway. And this is the moment where Darrow realizes that, yeah, he's not going to ask Severo to do it, but he's basically telling Severo not to, which we will see in a moment does not actually flesh out because new information is brought forward. But I think that's the growing moment for Darrow. Or he says, like, the daughters are going to kill you. Like, maybe. We don't know what they're going to do. But they're not happy with you, probably. And Darrow's like, Severo's done his duty. And I love that for Darrow to acknowledge.
I believe he even admits in this chapter that he read out the Sons of the Rim.
Yes. Yes, because Cassius didn't know
Severo
that
and Cassius.
Yeah.
Nope, no one knew that. No one. And he admits it, and they're like, what the...
Yeah.
Anyway. Yeah,
Really
I can't imagine. Was that Hannah?
Is that it really shows how far Darrow's come in his journey since his internal dark age, to say the least.
Yeah.
Full circle since Iron Gold. And he's grown so much, and it captures one of the reasons why I'm just in love with Lightbringer in general.
Yeah.
It's so satisfying to see someone you've been caring for so long to grow. And if he can grow, that means we can too.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, 100%.
Yep.
Absolutely. So it's really great to see how even that he's trying to separate Severo from this circumstance. And he explains how Fa attacked Ilium, and as a result, not only has the Dragon Armada, but the Scepter Armada and the Dragon Armada and the Ash Armada, and also the Armada following the Morning Star is starting to head back to Ilium, which explains Matteo's phrase, "You have more time than you think," when Darrow first came.
Oh, I never picked up on that Matteo called it out. Ooh, good call. Good call.
Yeah, exactly. When he first arrived, he's like, I don't have much time. And Matteo's like, you have more time than you think. It's like, oh, do I?
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think, like, Darrow calls out their, like, they have very long eyes. Like, really early on in this set of chapters, and now he's really learning how true that is.
Yeah.
Yeah, and apparently the AI can predict things that are going to happen before they happen. I'm not sure if I fully comprehended that yet, but
that
wow.
also confused me when Cassius was like, tell the AI to calm down, basically. And it was like, it's making up things. I was like, I thought they were looking through a telescope. What do you mean the AI is making up things? Like, what? Like, but we had this discussion with Badger, which you will not have watched that episode because it is not released as we were recording this. But we had a long discussion about AI, the advancements in AI, even in the last 6 months of the year 2023. Never mind 1,000 years in the future, what AI can do. And this kind of brings that to light of, you know, so they're watching this, they're seeing out of the telescope, and then, as you call out, like, can predict or make up whatever, and Cassius is still not trusting the AI, and it's like, tell the AI to calm down. That's like, no, that can't be it. It's making up fantasies. But it's really interesting, I think, Pierce's overarching look at AI. Yeah.
It's very interesting. And it's so similar to how our brains work already. Our brains like to fill in the blanks.
Yeah.
Like even with our vision, like with those, what are they called? Like the weird white and black things that look illusion.
Yeah.
They're like
Yeah.
in your
I watched
the
eyeballs.
like pink the blots.
Stereoscope.
Yeah.
Yeah. So our brains kind of already do that. So it's really cool that so far in the future, this is what's happening. So it's not, I guess it's not too far-fetched, but at the same time, it's still mind-blowing. And maybe Cassius is projecting a little bit onto the AI. Like, everyone just needs to calm down, even the AI.
Even the AI. In the great words of Taylor Swift, you need to calm down. You're being too loud.
Exactly.
And Taylor Swift makes an appearance.
Yeah. It is not confirmed that Severo is a Swiftie, but Pierce said that he probably listens to Taylor Swift and just pretends that he doesn't. So
I 100% believe that Severo is a
I
Swiftie.
think Severo is a Swiftie.
He for sure listens to some, like, cacophony version of Taylor Swift.
Yeah. But like
remix.
In this one, it's Evermore. Like he's in his like dark, like he's listening to Folklore Evermore, but cacophony version of Folklore Evermore.
Yeah. Or like with those old videos with the Taylor Swift goat.
Yes,
the screaming goat. That's what he listens to.
Yeah. Oh my god, he would be so into that.
I literally cannot hear that song without mentally overlaying the screaming goat into it.
I literally have a screaming goat on my desk. I press the screaming goat at work all the time. It's
my
a
old
little
store
figure.
had that. Yeah. It's the little desk. Yeah, my old store had the exact same one. I love it.
You know the one.
I know the one. Yeah. Poor T Swift. Poor T Swift with the screaming goats. But I think 100% Severo is a Swiftie, and I think Cassius is a Swiftie. Severo is in his Reputation era, and Cassius is going through, like, I don't know, 1989 maybe? But, either way, you need to calm down. You're being too loud.
So does that make Darrow Katy Perry?
Shots fired.
Baby, now we got Bad Blood. It used to be Mad Love. Oh!
It's their theme song right now.
Wow. To be fair, they patched that. They patched it up. Taylor and Katie are now friends again. Wow.
So hopefully
there's
that's
a puppy. There's a puppy.
Okay, now take chill. It's our dog. Sorry. Go on, Nala. Get the fuck out of here.
Okay, at least you guys don't have them as ghosts.
Yeah. Oh, Crescent has.
We also have cats.
Oh my God, this is amazing.
Have you guys not seen my ghost dogs?
I've seen your dogs. I haven't seen your ghost dogs.
My dogs are my ghost dogs.
Yeah.
Because
every once in a while they'll go through
the background
you'll just see a tail.
Oh,
You'll
I
see how,
how
like,
it is. I see how
non-exotic.
it is.
Yeah, you'll see how true. Anyway,
Sorry
off
to
of
anybody who
Taylor
didn't know that
Swift.
already.
Yeah, we're breaking the
Good to
illusion.
know.
Everyone joined the Patreon, in which his ghost dogs tried to kill me by smothering me to death.
Do it.
Let's do, I mean, we're in the middle of Taylor Swift. Let's just do a Patreon and merch break, because we're there.
Yes.
You guys are both Patreon members. Thank you so much for joining. Are you guys?
Yeah, thank you guys.
I know
We
through
are.
John's
Also-
account art
Also,
is for sure.
Yeah.
I
Well, I
wanna-
think it's
I wanna
actually
shout you
under
guys out.
your name. I think
It
it's
Very
is.
technically, yeah, Puppeteer. I think it's under
100%
your
it is.
name, and
Married life. I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm just saying.
I also want to shout you guys out specifically because you are the first ones to ever come up to us in person and be like from outside of the den, especially, you're like, we are fans.
But
So
yeah,
special.
No kidding,
that's
really?
because I know how this
Oh yeah.
works. How does this work?
I mean, she's the one who influenced me, and she's like, "That's Crescent, that's Skipper. Go say hi." I'm like, okay.
Thank God for
Okay, hi.
Instagram.
Oh, there it is. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, like, it's an absolute pleasure to have gotten to meet you, to get to know you, and
Aw.
I'm so glad we got a chance to do so. For the past 3 to 6 months at this point, I've been honored to be in the den and bring my wife along with me, even though she always wanted to be part of it.
Yeah, we are
so-
so happy
We're
to
super
have
grateful
you.
to have you guys.
You guys are amazing. We love you so much.
We love you too.
Yeah, that was such a fun night that night. Do I remember most of it? No. Do I blame Bottles, the fact that I don't remember most of it? Yes.
As long as you don't
Good
blame me,
idea.
Bottles
we're
didn't
good.
have that big of an impact on that.
It was a
You did
contributing factor.
You did a pretty good job of that yourself.
It's true. At some point, I just kept going, well, if I just keep buying both Crescent and I drinks, it's fine. And then I was buying me and someone else drinks. And then people were buying me drinks. It was fine. We were fine.
And that's how
you remember.
tequila
Was
works.
the name of the place City Council? Is that what it was?
No, Sound
City
Pony.
Circle or Council Circle? No. We went to Sound Pony after that. We went to
I
another
don't remember.
beer
I
Yeah,
don't
it was
remember
like-
the middle bar. I don't remember the middle bar.
It was right across the street. And I
Everyone
remember
tells
like
me
everyone
we went
freaking
to a
out.
middle bar. I don't remember it. I just remember HowlerCon and then Sound Pony.
Sound Pony was fun.
That's all you need.
Don't get me wrong. We had the Elvis clarinet player. Right?
I don't remember that part of Sound Pony.
It was Inner Circle Vodka Bar.
Oh, Inner Circle. That's what it was. And they were like freaking out because they were trying to close out around midnight, and we all just piled in around 11:47, and they're like, "Oh
Yeah.
no!"
Yeah, I think we got in there like it was like between 11 and 11:30. They're like last calls at 11:30. We do not have the capacity to handle you guys. They had
It's like
they had
40 of us just piled in.
100-person pub crawl come through that night, and they had a second bartender on. And they're like, "Yeah, we just sent our second bartender home." We're like, nuts.
To be clear, are we sure that I was there at that bar? Because
Yes.
I was
You
at
were.
Oh, damn.
Yes,
I was gonna
because
say I at that
remember
point was
Skipper-
I was with Howler Pod
so that we
and
could
Words
buy
of Whiskey
Slink
at
a
that
drink.
point. Did we buy
Yeah, they were
Slink
there
a
too.
drink?
Remember, because I was right next to you buying a drink.
Oh,
So
fascinating. All right.
Okay, John doesn't remember almost getting into a fight with someone about like Cassius or something silly like that.
in my opinion, I was arguing about whether or not curved sword is a good for a sword fighting sword. I'm not going to get into that.
Ooh. So I also nearly got in a fight that night, defending Crescent's honor.
Oh, it's done.
And I have never,
I
I
remember
have
that.
never in my
And she's not
life.
the only one, apparently.
No, Dram got in the fight first, and then came and warned me, so that by the time the guy came up to me, I was like, you're in my shit books. Somebody
Was
doubted that Crescent had driven from Saskatchewan to HowlerCon.
What?
Yep. and was like,
Oh.
this is the thing, is he said to the team who, like, there's the group of us, like, full cheering that Crescent's pulled on stage, which he gives his government name, and all of us were, like, disgusted by it.
Don't you
Gross.
don't do me like that. Yeah, I was like, immediately, I was like, flinched. I was like, wait.
You're like, just kidding, I'm Crescent.
You're a real
we were,
person?
like, hardcore
I'm a
cheering
figment
for
of your
Crescent,
imagination.
and this guy is talking to Dram and is like, yeah, I can lie too. And so the whole Howlers that I was like in a different part. I didn't hear any of this. Dram comes up to me, pissed off, and is like, that guy over there thinks that Crescent's a liar. And I was like, well, fuck that guy. 20 minutes later, a friend I have who is a different she's one of my original Howler friends that I know off Twitter, brings this guy up to me and is like, hey, sell him on your podcast. And I just look at him and I was like, not this asshole. And she's like, what? And I was like, he thinks that my co-host is a liar. I don't need him listening to my podcast. And like, they just stand there shocked. And I look at the guy and I'm like, you can walk away. And he just walks away. I was like, I don't need assholes listening to my podcast. No. We have quality listeners. We don't have all the quantity, but we have the quality listeners.
Hell yeah, we do.
Yes.
Even you guys on Spotify and iTunes, you are, or Apple Podcasts, whatever we're calling it, you are quality listeners. Yeah.
True.
You guys, do you both have the circus shirt on?
Go ahead.
You both have circus
Yeah,
shirt. Yeah, you got the HowlerCon
Yep.
circus shirts from Lit Escalades. I see a Howler jacket happening as well from Lit Escalades.
Yep. We both have one of those, yep.
Nice.
Love it. Crescent, you've got
I've got Slink's Lightbringer tour shirt. I felt it was fitting.
Yes.
Hey.
I still need to buy one so badly. And then I went with my Rise, which is, I think, out of print. It's like predates Lit Escalates, but it is a Joel creation. I thought that was suiting, like, fitted of getting back to Severo and Quicksilver together and the start of the Rising.
Amen.
Yes.
I agree 100%. By the way, I want to say, from Sound Pony, I remember one time that I was hanging out with Crescent for a little bit at Sound Pony. And I will say this, for my wife and I, it's a dream come true. So we were chatting with Crescent, and he's like, you know what? You should come on the podcast sometime and chat with us. And I'm like, you know what? I might just take you up on that.
And here you are.
And sure enough,
True our word.
what a joy.
Yeah.
I don't make idle threats.
No.
He certainly doesn't, and I love it.
No, we don't invite everybody. This is the thing. Everyone thinks it's an open invite. You know, you do. There is a vetting system. You guys, in the first night, made it through. So good work.
Yep.
And thank you, Bottles, for being social.
Love you, Puppeteer.
Just think, you guys are in the same league as Pierce.
Yeah. Oof. Pierce has been on.
Oof.
Wow,
what an honor. My heart.
There you go.
Love you guys. Anyway, we were finishing up the chapter of...
No, we need to finish our merch break.
Yeah, please, go ahead.
So we talked about everybody else's merch. If you go to howlerhollow.net, you can check out all the merch from the Den. Pity them. Patches should be live as this airs. There was a big Cyber Monday sale. I don't think it's probably continuing as this goes live, but all of those will be active on the website. There will be Bone Rider t-shirts. There will be, what else are we working on? Daddy-O-Meaties, or Daddy-Meaties, or however you want to pronounce that, will be live at this point. And then check out the Fade to Obsidian Redbubble. where we've got There's No Shade in Tulsa if you were at Howler Con. There's no therapy in space.
You will know how true that was.
Catch These Hell Diver Hands, and a few other things, relationships versus spaceships. Check all of those out and join
and
our
apparently
Patreon.
soon a Cassius apron.
A Cassius apron. If
We need that.
okay, this is my goal. This episode's gonna come out, and then everybody's got 1 week to submit their suggestions in the YouTube comments for a Cassius apron. I will take all of those suggestions back to our Patreon. They get to vote on what the final thing will be, and we will get a Cassius apron of
That's
cooking,
perfect.
whatever.
Yes.
So if
So
you're
for all of
watching
y'all
this,
that are looking,
yeah. So even
all
if you're
y'all that are
listening,
looking to get some of the top, kind of gear that you're trying to get associated with Red Rising, go ahead and check out the Fate to Obsidian Redbubble, and go ahead and vote on the Cassius apron, which is going to be the top of the line, taking care of the Archie. You go ahead and vote right now.
yeah, love it. Okay, we do need to talk though. Archie or Archie?
Archie.
You're going Archie? I'm going Archie because it's
Archie
the
for
Archimedes,
sure.
and not to give away my government name, but Archie is one of my nicknames, and so I can't call the ship my own nickname.
Not with that attitude.
What's wrong with both?
Ooh.
Okay.
true.
Okay, Hannah.
I just
Way
like
to
both.
play
I can't
both
choose.
sides of the ball here.
Look at the
I
puppeteer
like-
there.
Pecan and pecan. I don't really know which one I'm gonna say. I know there's a right one, but both will come out.
Vase and vase gets me. I have to think of it every time. I'm like, I don't know if it's vase or vase. I don't know.
Both work.
All right.
So Archie and Archie.
If it gets
Whatever
the point
comes out.
across,
Yeah. As long
but
as
there
we
needs
know
to
you're
be an
not
O in Daddy
talking about.
Medes.
Yeah. Okay. What do you guys? Team Daddy-O-Medes or Dadamedes? Or wait, how do you say it?
Daddy-O-Medes.
Daddy-O-Medes. You guys with the O?
Oh, with the O.
The O's
Yeah.
important, guys. The
We
O is
them
very
Oreos.
important. Don't just lie back and think of the Empire. You need the O. Okay.
You need the O. I literally had a guy in our dorm. Our RA was named Daddy-O. Jason Daddy-O. That was the last name.
That's
so
his last
Daddy-O.
name.
That was his
Wow.
last name. Daddy-O. I'm like, oh, man. That's a solid last name.
That's high quality shit.
Hell yeah. So Daddy-O is where it's at.
Nice.
Daddy-O-Medes.
All right. Well, now on that point, let's get into this last chapter. We get Lyria. We get a Lyria
Yeah,
chapter.
we do.
She is waking up after some surgery. We know that it has been the figment, I'm gonna call it, has been removed from her. And Mateo is there testing to make sure that she's got everything.
So the chapter starts with him actually removing
Yeah.
parasite from him. He shows Lyria the parasite in a bin. It says, "Go ahead, and if you draw a triangle, you'll destroy it." And here's where things get into theory
Yes.
category, because when she draws a triangle, there is a bright light, and Mateo draws her face away from the bright light. And then when she returns, there's nothing but a puddle. So the question is this: did Mateo actually destroy the parasite?
Ooh. See, I never thought about this in my first read until it was brought up in Lightbringer chat. And that's when I was like, oh, shit. Like, there is also theories that it is not even removed from Lyria, that it is still in her brain to be used later.
They say that she feels for it and she doesn't feel it, but
it's
just
like a
turned off.
phantom limb, where she says it's not
Yeah.
a limb, but something
Absolutely.
is there or was there. Yeah.
I think that they actually removed it from her, but they didn't destroy it.
Mm.
Because if there's one thing I learned about Quicksilver, he is not against using weapons that he knows will be effective.
So my question then is, to what end? Because my thinking is that we will not see Quicksilver ever again after this. So to what end would you remove it and hold on to it?
Brought back to the quote that is said about Quicksilver in the first chapter. Quicksilver doesn't create questions to which he does not have answers.
Okay.
So I think that this figment is actually his solution to the conflict, and he believes that Lyria, or at least someone else that he may have implanted it into, might be fixing things in the long run.
It could even be a way to save the technology, because why waste it?
Yep.
You know, like, you might as well have the technology, use it, copy it, and make it. And I wonder if he would use it on these children when they're older to have an army of sorts protect this place, because somehow this place will eventually need protection somehow from something, possibly.
Yeah.
That could be the question he's answering ahead of time.
Yep.
And so then we fall in line with, okay, we will probably never see Quicksilver again. He's going to do his own thing with his own stuff.
Yep. Crescent thoughts?
So beyond, go ahead.
So, my thought is, what you see is what you get.
Mm-hmm.
Pierce has so many plot threads
He certainly does.
that at this point need to be closed off in one book.
Thank you.
I think we have gotten what's on the page.
Yep.
I think he's done the unreliable narrator thing enough times that we're not gonna get a haha surprise. Here's the figment, right?
Yeah.
I think he's just strategically clipping plot lines
For sure.
where they're extraneous.
So
And I know there's a lot of people that aren't really crazy on the figment plot thread in general.
Sure.
They feel like it's just unnecessary. Like, really, yeah, it does give Lyria a leg up in terms of, like, her ability. But her like, technical ability isn't where her strengths lie.
Yeah.
Her strengths lie in her emotional connections with people.
Yeah, for sure. That's what I was about to bring up, is that a few people are upset that this is the end of the figment. And it was used for such a short amount of time. But in my mind, I echo Crescent there, of it was needed to get her during those chapters of Dark Age. And it was needed in that it needed to be fixed. How else are you going to find Quicksilver? Then you get Darrow to the point. Like, it is plot points in that manner, but it is not who Lyria is. It makes total sense that Lyria would give it up. Lyria wants to stay true to herself. She's
Absolutely.
so grounded in her family. She's so grounded just in Liam that she is going to give up whatever so that she can be true to her red self. That I think it makes total sense, everything that Pierce has done with the figment.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I think this is actually one of the points where I don't know if you remember, where Pierce Brown posted on Twitter that he was talking about the fact that he was struggling with the last book and creating it into a separate second book.
Mm-hmm.
And this is actually where I think that it started, where you start to see where the figment was bringing a new element to the book that he was struggling with. the parasite, and he was trying to really bring into an element that like the book was getting too complicated for him. This is a theory, by the way. So by removing the figment, the parasite from Lyria, he removed an extra strenuous, extra complicated element from the story that would allow him to lead towards his overall crescendo, which I'm sure we'll see in Red God.
Yeah.
So this point where she's removing it from her, it not only allows us to have a kind of a completion element of Lyria, which allows her to become a more complete complete character, and we'll see later on in this chapter, but she also is kind of removing an element that would draw the story into more complicated elements, which will drive beyond the four novels that Evie's going to try to have to do. I think in the previous book, Dark Age, he kind of wrote himself into a corner into so many storylines that it would become too complicated for him to finish in a four book series. Yeah. So here is where he starts to siphon it.
For sure, and I think we need to remember that Lightbringer and Red God were written as one book, and then divided. So there will be storylines that ended in Lightbringer in the same way if this was a 1,000-page book. If it was a 2,000-page book, 500 pages in, you would start cutting off different plot lines, and this is one of them. And I think that's it. Is I don't think everything needs to continue. I think people, and this is why I normally don't ever theorize about any of the books, because we'll never know, and I don't want to be disappointed one way or another. I read the books and then it's done and over with until the next one comes out. And I think, though, especially we have to remember that Lightbringer is really the first half of the end. And therefore there are things that end here. And in my mind, Figment is one of them. It served its purpose. I think it was a great addition to Dark Age, but to keep Lyria true to herself, it makes sense that she would get rid of it. And if that lives on in Quicksilver, it might, but my guess is Quicksilver is gone because, again, we need that plot end. I don't think he's going to show up in the final scene to be like, oh, just kidding, I brought my full Hermana back. Like, yeah.
Agreed. I will say, and I have to ask Puppeteer what she feels about this. How do you feel about the grid check personality / cognitive test?
Yes, this was what I was going to ask as well.
Well, to be completely honest, we've come so far with being able to see that stuff now. I was like, oh yeah, I bet we could do that then. Just like with the AI.
Yeah.
But it's just a more enhanced version. Because even now, you can put, those little nodes on someone's brain and ask them questions and see what lights up.
Yeah. I'm fascinated by that.
Yeah, it's so cool. So just similar with the AI reference, I can definitely see how in the future this would be easily accessible, and even more so for Quicksilver and Mateo, who had access to all of Mustang's research and collections.
Yeah, for sure. I also find it interesting, though. I love Mateo being terrible. Your personality is terrible. Because it's I don't know. I am not a scientist, we know, in any capacity, whether that's even behavioral. But it's okay, so there is ways you should answer in ways that would be clear that her mind is wiped. But at the same time, he's still your personality is terrible. You are you, but you're terrible.
Yeah, your cognition all there, you all there, still bad.
Yep.
And for those of y'all who don't know about when it comes to personality tests, the Myers-Briggs is not probably your best bet. You should go for the ocean tests, which is from my beautiful wife, Puppeteer. What does ocean stand for?
Yeah, what's the ocean one? I don't even know that one.
It's like, well,
Openness.
openness, what is it? Conscientiousness.
Extroversion.
Yeah. So like accept it? No, like where you just like accept things?
Yeah.
Accept
Neuroticism.
something like that? Yeah. But even those are like it's fairly outdated and more of a concept at this point.
Yeah.
That's from like 15, 20 years ago.
All of those really fascinating. So Myers-Briggs, if people don't know, it is a mother-daughter team who have no background in behavioralism, just wanted to find a proper suitor for the daughter. And so it's complete kind of BS. They have over the years added a bit more substance to it, but also any of those, it depends on your mood for the day. Right?
Yeah.
Like
Yep.
there is one, and
I
it's
did
the
have
colors where it's like, are you like gold is you are that proper like lists, you want everything. Blue is, I think, someone will correct me on this, but I think blue is like mathematical, green is feeling, and then orange is just like chaotic, which is me forever until you like I'm like an orange gold mix, which is like so rare that I'm so chaotic, but also like I love a good list. But it depends on the day I wake up, because sometimes I want that list to be based on the math, and sometimes I want it to be based on my feelings. So what's happening? So I find all behavioralist tests very interesting, because it's like, how did I wake up this morning? Is that how it's
Yeah.
gonna, right? Like,
You have to take really intricate tests to get real answers, and Myers-Briggs is insightful, but not the end-all, be-all.
yeah.
Just like horoscopes, in a way, but maybe a little bit more put together.
Yeah. Yeah.
Fair enough. Anyway, this chapter, the departure, where she finally gets rid of the parasite, leads into her eventually meeting Darrow.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, I cannot imagine being in her shoes and meeting Darrow. I just have to imagine meeting Darrow, and I would just balk. Like, how is she even doing this? Like, she's so brave.
Yeah. Well, like she even says it, like he makes his own gravity.
Yeah.
Like this is this titan of a person, right? But one that she definitely harbors some resentment towards. At least
I
briefly.
love
Well, at least until
I
she
love
talks with him.
I love what we do with Lyria, is the fact that like Lyria, I'm not gonna lie, when I first read her in Iron Gold, kind of hated her.
I'm with you on
You're
that.
not alone
Yeah.
in that.
Yes, I'm sure I'm not alone in that. But this is the moment where like Lyria makes a fundamental change. In the sense that like it literally just defines it in this way. My anger dissolves in the reality of his existence. Understand what he's seen, what he's been through, what he's been able to endure. He's like, you know what? Everything I hated about this guy, I'm like, fuck, I wouldn't want to do that. I wouldn't want to be in this situation. I wouldn't want to have to deal with this and that and that and the other. So Lyria makes a drastic change in her understanding of the world and the people around her and the leaders around her, to the point that she takes a big jump in her opinion, in my opinion at the very least, of who she is and her understanding of the people around her and the people who are trying to pursue her own goals. I love it. Anyway.
Yeah, I really like. This is kind of the first time we see Darrow through anyone who's smaller than his eyes. Because Ephraim never met Darrow. Obviously, Mustang is toe to toe with Darrow. Lysander sees himself. Well, Lysander idolizes him. He sees himself on the same level. this is the first time we get someone who's like, oh shit, he's fucking huge. Like,
Yeah.
he's just the biggest man ever, and like what he's been through. Like, it is the first time we see Darrow in that perspective, which is really interesting. And then she stands up to him. So they're kind of, yeah, you're, you know, my favorite part is her being like, yeah, I know what you're doing. I know your plans. And he's like, what is it? Mateo liked the gossip circles too much.
Yeah,
like,
he
missed
missed
them.
the gossip circle, yeah.
You missed the gossip circles. Yeah, exactly.
Mateo should have kept his fucking mouth shut. And then she's going on of, I need to come with you. I need to, you know, I need to do this for Lyria. Or sorry, for Volga. And he, you know, is keeping his eyes shut, whatever, and then has that, like, moment of finally looking at her. And, like,
Yeah.
but the whole thing, it's,
yeah,
like,
not even with his eyes closed. He's literally just staring at the ceiling.
Yeah.
With his eyes open.
Yeah, he's
not
like, sure.
looking at her. And then, yeah, she stands up for herself, and then it's like, finally he meets my eyes.
Yeah.
And also, I just remembered, Lyria was involved in kidnapping his son, and he is fully aware of her involvement in that.
Yep.
So that just adds a whole nother complex layer to their...
still kind of resentful, because his comment is, I'm told we've forgiven you.
Yeah. According to my wife, we've forgiven you, and I'm supposed to make sure you get home safe.
Yep.
So it's not a I've forgiven you. It's my wife says we've forgiven you.
It's pretty cold.
Yeah.
Yeah.
From such a big guy.
You know what? It's great to see how she literally explains that Darrow just exudes power, and is trying to understand, give you context on what Darrow's personality is like. It's a presence. He is a individual who takes up space in every area that he's in.
Yeah.
And that's a drastic change from the next scene where Illyria finally is forced onto the ship that's going to go back to Mars.
Yep.
Forced. At gunpoint, even.
Is it gunpoint?
That's what Mateo says.
Yeah, that's what Mateo says. When she gets on the ship.
Yeah, Darrow and the rest are going to find my friend, and I'm being sent the other way. And it says Mateo's eyebrows float up. Indeed, at gunpoint even. Safe journey. And then just pieces out. I love that. And it takes her a while to figure it out.
Like, it's not necessarily by gunpoint.
Yeah. There might be
But
another
before we get into
option,
that,
but we're not going to see today whether or not there's another option. But then we get what I really love to hear Puppeteer's point of view of, is the conversation of Lyria and Severo, in which Severo is going to go back. There's a hollow cube that has to be given to Mustang that Severo has, and Lyria, in a kind of bid of can we be friends during this, apologizes to him for everything that's happened and drops Ulysses' name and that Ulysses has passed. Causing Severo to have what is the end of the chapter, his storm off, hands the hollow cube off of make sure. Does he say in this part, make sure Mustang gets it? But
he does. He says that make sure that the Sovereign gets it.
To the Sovereign.
Yeah. So that Severo drop, talk us through it, Puppeteer. What are you feeling? How are you?
So, as we're reading this section and we realize Severo and Lyria are about to be together, I turn to Bottles and I tell him, oh my gosh, Lyria knows. Severo has no idea because that information was kept from everyone, except everyone on Mars. Somehow that information did not make it to Darrow and that whole Archimedes shit. And the whole time I'm like, this is not good. This is how Severo finds out. And so the whole time I'm like freaking out about this encounter. And then it happens, and I remember reading this, my whole heart just drops. And I'm like, oh my god, poor Severo and poor Lyria. Because she quickly realizes, oh my god, he didn't know.
She figures she knows. They've talked to the Sovereign. Why wouldn't you know?
Why would he not know? Why would Lyria not bring that up?
Yep.
Any fellow human would offer their condolences to something that horrible. So, like, it was bound to happen, and it was like watching a dumpster fire from afar, and you knew you were getting closer and closer to it as their paths cross. And you kind of see that dumpster fire continue in the next section, which I'm really excited for that conversation too.
Yeah. Very interesting.
Yeah,
it is.
Poor Severo.
Poor Severo,
and Lyria.
for sure. I do wonder why Mustang withheld that information.
Yeah.
It was a choice.
Or was
a
it
choice.
Victra?
Or Victra.
Was it
with either way?
Because I think if it was Victra that made that choice, and it's from a little different of a perspective. She's probably feeling really bad and very guilty that she let her baby die. And I'm doing air quotes around let, because she obviously had no control over that. But that survivor's guilt, especially with all the hormones of being pregnant and all that, I could see how she would want to keep that from her husband until she avenges their son.
Yeah.
Kind of like Severo. I mean, they're Victra and Severo are very similar in that manner.
Yeah.
But from Mustang, that's a more manipulative, I think.
Yeah, my guess is it would have been Victra telling. I don't think Mustang would have withheld. There would have been a background conversation of, what do you want me to tell Severo?
Right. That's what I would imagine. And then poor Lyria having to have the burden of being the person
who
with that information.
Yeah.
And that becomes her identity, the person that had to give this horrible news, the messenger.
I mean, you have to realize that she was kind of forced to get that information under duress. Literally, Severo is grabbing her by the throat and choking her. As he's forcing her, he just keeps repeating, him. Yeah. To understand that it's his son.
Yeah, because he thought it was a daughter.
I feel like, yeah, I can imagine this poor woman, this poor Red, carried by gold by the throat, and she literally says he is larger than they imply that he is. Can you imagine just being held by the throat in the air by the Goblin of Mars? As she describes it, it's like a wood chipper. You have no idea if he's coming towards you. So, like, to imagine that that's reality, to see a guy is just demanding, give me the information I demand.
Yeah.
Or poor Lyria, I can't imagine what she's going through, and she just has to confess everything and I love this quote, my words are sharper than his knives.
Yeah.
Oh.
And unfortunately, they go from bad to worse. Like, it's one thing that his son is dead. It's a whole other thing with the way that he died.
Yes.
Yeah.
So it's just bad to worse.
Yeah.
It's the people he was trying to protect that caused him the worst trauma of his life, in his opinion, I'm sure.
Yeah.
To see that the Red Hand, the people he was trying to protect, the Reds, caused the death of his own child, his own son, his first son. So, yikes.
Yeah, it's a lot.
Fucking
like
harmony.
the fucking harmony. I love the phrase. It describes his entire interaction in a perfect way. Holy blade damn shit. I mean, it's not ideal.
Yeah.
No, it's quite the way to learn new information, and just wow, way to go, Pierce. Such a good section.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, all of Pierce's sections are good sections, but I think
Exactly.
You're not wrong.
True.
he deals with grief, trauma, the hard things so well, is what stands out all the time in comparison to other writers who, not to put any other writer down, but are good, but kind of a lot of the time move on quickly. He dwells.
Yeah.
And just long enough that us as readers need to deal with it. It's not too long. He knows exactly that amount to dwell on something.
You know, as you said that, I realized in training for therapy, they tell you when you hear a patient or a client say something, have them pause.
Yeah.
And like dwell. The word dwell is really what got me. You dwell on it for a minute. So he's really catering to our natural needs. And yet another reason to be impressed with Pierce and his amazing writing skills.
Is Pierce a
Oh, yeah.
therapist? I thought he was a political science student. Are we learning that
He's
Pierce
my
is a
therapist.
Pierce, are you our
If you
therapist?
need a therapist, maybe.
Did you just say Pierce
After
needs
Dark
a
Age,
therapist?
for sure.
No, he might make us need therapists.
Oh, that's
Yeah.
true.
Well, like I
Listen,
said, after
my
Dark Age.
therapist has not read Red Rising, but her husband has. I'm fully aware of that part. Because I was explaining Red Rising. Oh, it was right before we did the Glittering Gala, and she was like, "Is this the science fiction book that like deals with colors?" And I was like, "Yeah!" And she's like, "My husband loves it," and I was like, "Yay!" So my therapist watched the Glittering Gala, and all I could think of this entire time was that she was going to be sitting there being like, "Your body language told me that," but she didn't even bring it up after, like, next session. She's like, "How'd it go?" And I was like, "As if you didn't watch, but okay, sure, we'll talk about it." Sure.
That's a benefit of having your therapist being part of that, and I really encourage that, especially if a therapist can follow along with what you're reading, because all of
It
us
affects us.
all of us
Oh,
who
yeah.
follow this.
I mean,
We
everyone knows
are-
Ulysses' death during Dark Age, I was in Vermont, and fuck you, Vermont. We don't like Vermont.
Yeah,
Had
fuck
to
you,
pull
Vermont.
had to pull
Yeah.
over to the side of the road and bawl my eyes out at Ulysses' death. And I think still to this day it is the hardest hitting moment. And we
sure.
just relive it constantly through Lightbringer of every time. And this is us reliving it again.
Hopefully,
Yeah,
Pierce will help us heal.
Hopefully. I'm so excited. We better see it. The
Amen.
Victra and Severo reunion. That's all
Oh,
I
yeah.
want.
Sure.
I don't care. And I have said I hate Red God theories. I've said this, but I don't care whether or not Darrow and Mustang make it through. I need Severo and Victra to be reunited.
Yeah.
You.
Yeah, they have just been kicked and beaten.
They
They need good things.
Victra deserves her short king. That being said, this chapter ends with, of course, Severo leaving the ship to Mars after learning this horrific series of events.
Yep.
And he gives the hollow to Lyria, saying, like, make sure this gets to the Sovereign. And Lyria remembers that phrase that Mateo said, even held at gunpoint. And she doesn't see a gun in sight. And she hops off the ship off to Mars and has a mischievous idea as she heads towards the ship headed to Ilium
Yeah,
with Darrow,
She
Cassius.
runs out the way she came.
Yeah.
From there, we have no idea because the Patreon didn't let us have an idea.
Good cliffhanger. I will accept this cliffhanger on behalf of the Patreon. This is a good one.
Yeah.
And we get Meringue next week, who really just wanted to talk about Cassius's cleaning habits. That's why Meringue is on the next episode. She's like, can we just talk about Cassius and his like care of the Archimedes? And I was like, okay, so spoil just a little bit. That's what you're getting next week is Cassius and his cleaning habits. You saw it a bit this week. We're getting it all next week.
Yeah, we're getting into the nitty clean of it.
Listen, there's going to be a deep
Not the nitty gritty.
No. The deep scrub of the Archimedes. We're going to find all the things, including the like 20 jars of sun butter.
Yeah.
Oh my god, his new addiction.
I know.
Yeah.
I love it. Eating it with a spoon. I don't know if anyone saw it. So if you were in Minnesota, definitely join the Howlers Den because the Minnesota Howlers do better than anyone else in the world.
There's like a dozen of them.
And they have monthly meetups, and they did Thanksgiving 2 days ago from when we're recording. And they had Severo sun butter. They had ham. They had everything themed. They had a full dinner. Thanksgiving dinner.
So cool.
Yeah.
But
I'd move to Minnesota for that.
Yeah, you can follow them on Instagram as House Minerva, MN.
Yeah,
Minerva. Yeah, you can figure it out. Minerva.
Yeah.
One more time.
Minerva. Yeah, they are fantastic. Summit is kind of the lead. She answered, I reposted their thing, and she's like, you guys were invited.
Yeah,
they are the halfway point
between all of us. We have enough spare rooms.
Yeah, so
that's not unfair.
That is our plan, is to one day do a Fate to Obsidian episode with Minnesota Howlers. But yeah, they had the sun butter. We will see more of the sun butter in the next episode.
In the meantime, make sure to check out the Fate to Obsidian Redbubble. Continue watching the Fate to Obsidian podcast, which has been fantastic with all people from the Den. Thank you very much once again to Skipper and Crescent for a fantastic podcast. I really enjoyed my time with you.
Yeah, thank you guys for joining.
Thank you guys so much for coming on.
Immediately, what I was thinking halfway through is that we need you guys when it comes to So after Lightbringer, our plan is to do kind of focusing on specific relationships, and I think you guys would be great for the Severo Victra and their family, as well as that compared to, let's say, Darrow Mustang and Pax, and that family dynamic, but kind of that family dynamic, which would be fantastic.
Oh yeah,
so
yeah. Please let us talk about that.
We will have you guys.
We
back
love
on
join y'all
for sure. Once Lightbringer, we've got all of our guests, but we will get you back on after that. So thank you very much for joining us. This has been fantastic.
Thank you,
and thank all the rest of you for joining us out in podcast land.
Yes, thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. Like and subscribe, especially on YouTube. We are trying to hit 200 subscribers before New Year's Eve. Is our goal. We are currently at 148, and we know we have more listeners than subscribers. So come on, click that button.
It's one
not
button
that
click.
hard. It's not that hard.
It's pretty easy.
All right.
Also, don't forget to throw your comments in the YouTube comment section for
Cassius apron.
Cassius apron.
What are we putting on it? Sun butter? Ham? Clean this shit? Quote him? Who knows? He's a dolphin? Whatever you want. Cassius apron. Let's do it. Thanks, everybody.
Thumbs up and notification bells. Let's do it, folks.
Right.
Ding.
Thank you very much, and have a good night.
Thanks for listening to Fade to Obsidian, where Skipper and Crescent casually dissect the friendships, relationships, and those fade to black moments in the Red Rising saga. If you enjoy our chaos, please remember to like and subscribe on whatever platform you listen to podcasts. We are available on YouTube, Spotify, Google Play, and Apple Podcasts. Don't forget to give us a follow on Instagram at Fade to Obsidian. And if you'd like behind-the-scenes content or to be involved firsthand in our chaotic decisions, subscribe to our Patreon for as little as $2 a month. For $5, you'll receive a monthly postcard from Crescent. Will it be one of the ones that we accidentally stole from Tulsa? I'm so sorry, Decopoulos. And if you're crazy enough to trust Skipper with maybe sending you a postcard, our third tier is $100 a month. What? Please don't choose this option. Lastly, make sure to join the pack in the Howler's Den on Discord, discord.gg/thehowlersden, where we talk all things Red Rising. Until next time, Omnisphere Lupus.